welcome to the Deep Dive. You're with us today probably because you're looking to really get a handle on some big ideas quickly, effectively.
Yeah, ideas that shift your perspective, give you those aha moments.
Exactly, without getting totally swamped in complexity.
Yeah.
So today, we're diving into Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. Our mission: pull out the core wisdom, make it practical, something you can actually, grasp and maybe use.
And the origin of this book, it's pretty wild, actually. It came from this, incredibly intense personal moment for Tolle.
Right, that famous story.
Yeah, he hit this point of deep despair, thinking, I cannot live with myself any longer.
Which is such a strange thought when you stop and think about it. Who is the I and who is the myself?
Exactly. That very thought made him stop. It triggered the sudden awareness, the split, the eye watching, and the self that felt unbearable.
And then his mind just stopped.
Completely. The constant chatter, gone. He described it as this cessation of thought.
Wow. Hard to imagine. What then?
He felt like he was being pulled into this vortex of energy. Started slow, then got faster, really intense fear. He was trembling.
Sounds terrifying.
It did, but then something inside him just said, resist nothing. And he let go. He surrendered into this feeling, this void. That was the turning point.
And that led to the awakening he talks about. What was that like?
He says it was, extraordinary, like hearing a bird chirp, but really hearing it for the first time, seeing light through the curtains and feeling it was pure love.
So everything felt completely new, alive.
Totally vibrant, beautiful, like he'd never truly seen it before. It wasn't just seeing differently. It was a fundamental shift in his whole state of being.
And that experience, that personal breakdown and breakthrough, became the basis for the book.
Precisely. He spent ages after that, like years, just living in this state of intense joy. No real external identity, no past weighing him down.
Just being on park benches, apparently.
Yeah, just present, immersed in this peace. And people started noticing, right? They felt something different about him, started asking him questions.
And his core message was?
Super simple, but profound. You already have it. You just can't feel it because your mind is making too much noise.
Too much noise. That's the key.
That's the essence that grew into the power of now.
So moving from this very private awakening to becoming a teacher, that's quite a leap.
It is. And the book really reflects his work over the next decade, talking with individuals, small groups.
People who were ready to hear it, I suppose?
Yeah, he calls them pioneers, really. People willing to challenge those ingrained mental habits that, let's face it, cause a lot of suffering.
So the book aims to spark that same kind of inner shift for those ready.
That's the hope. And for others, maybe just something to consider, Food for thought.
And it came from real conversations, right? Not just theory.
Exactly. Questions people asked in seminars, counseling sessions. It grew organically from real struggles and insights. Very practical.
Okay, amazing backstory. Let's get into the core ideas. The big one first. You are not your mind.
Absolutely fundamental. The book basically says your mind is a tool, like a hammer. You use it for a specific job.
Problem-solving, planning.
Right. And then you put it down. But most of us, our minds are on all the time. Involuntary thinking.
Just running constantly in the background.
And Tolle estimates something like, 80 to 90% of that thinking is repetitive, useless, often negative.
80 to 90, that sounds huge.
It does. But pay attention to your own head for a day. The replays, the worries. It's maybe not that far off. It really drains your energy.
It feels like the mind is in charge, not us.
That's the point. Are we using the mind or is it using us? Enlightenment, he says, isn't about becoming thoughtless, like falling below thought.
It's rising above it.
Exactly. You still use your mind when you need it, but consciously. Focused. Without the constant internal noise, there's this stillness underneath.
So it's about regaining control, having that off switch.
The book asks, point blank, can you be free of your mind whenever you want? For most people, probably not.
Yeah, definitely not.
And real creativity, Tolle suggests, comes from moving between that focused thought and the stillness, the no mind, consciousness without thought.
Yeah.
When thought gets disconnected from that deeper awareness, it becomes, kind of barren, even destructive, like a computer just churning uselessly.
Gotcha. Okay, let's shift to the next big one. Consciousness, the way out of pain. This feels central.
Oh, absolutely. The idea here is that any pain we create in the present moment comes from non-acceptance, from resisting
Resisting reality, basically.
Yeah, On a thought level, that's judgment: good, bad, should be, shouldn't be. Emotionally, it's negativity. Anything from slight irritation to deep anguish.
And the intensity depends on how much we resist.
Directly proportional, how much we fight the now and how much we're identified with our thoughts about it.
Like struggling in quicksand, the more you fight, the deeper you sink.
Perfect analogy. The mind naturally wants to escape the future. Now, right. It dwells on the past, regrets, or projects into the future, worries.
Always somewhere else.
And the more we're caught in that, identified with it, the more we suffer. But if we can just acknowledge, accept, even honor the present moment as it is,
then we start to break free from the pain, the ego.
That's the path Tolle's out. Freedom comes from accepting the now.
Okay, but then there's this concept of the pain body that sounds a bit ominous.
It does, doesn't it? It's described as this accumulation of old, unprocessed emotional pain, like residual energy stuck inside us.
A semi-autonomous energy field.
Sort of, yeah. It lies dormant sometimes, but then something triggers it. It could be small, like impatience, or big, like anger. You feel that negativity flare up. That could be the pain body waking up.
So it's old pain resurfacing. And it actually feeds on negativity.
Yeah, exactly. It wants to survive, so it tries to get you to identify with it unconsciously. It takes over your thinking, your emotions.
Becomes you for a bit.
And then it seeks out situations that will create more of its own energy signature. More anger, more drama, more sadness. It literally feeds on pain.
Wow. That's quite an image. So how do we start feeding it? How do we disarm it?
The key is consciousness. Unconsciousness creates it. Consciousness transmutes it.
Like light dispelling darkness. You can't fight darkness.
Precisely. You don't fight the pain body with more negativity or judgment. That just fuels it. You bring awareness to it.
Just watch it. Observe it.
Yes. Feel it fully. Accept it as part of what's happening right now, but without getting caught up in the story about it. Watch it with detachment.
And that dissolves its energy.
It weakens it. It loses its grip when you shine the light of your awareness on it.
Okay. This all points towards moving deeply into the now. Presence seems to be the master key.
It really is. The book strongly advises against looking for your true self or lasting peace in the mind.
Because the mind creates the problems, so it can't solve them.
Right. The root issue is identifying with the mind, which creates the ego, that illusion of a separate self. Studying the mind's complexities won't free you if you're still identified with it.
Like trying to map a maze while you're still lost inside it.
Good one. Yeah. And the ego, it's always needy, isn't it? Feels vulnerable, lacking.
Always seeking something outside itself.
Validation, security, it latches onto problems, builds stories around them, sometimes even gets invested in the suffering itself because it strengthens that illusory identity.
That's a tough pill to swallow, that we might be attached to our own pain.
It can be. But the flip side is that this moment is the doorway out, the gateway to the spiritual dimension.
Which spiritual masters have always pointed to, right? But it gets missed.
Often, yeah. Even within religions. Tolle mentions Jesus talking about not worrying about tomorrow, focusing on today. It's about recognizing that the past is gone, the future isn't here, only the now is real.
That's where the power is.
That's where life is.
So our perception of time, dwelling on past and future, is actually the main problem.
Tolle calls psychological time, our mental construct of past-future, a kind of disease. The now is the only reality, the only access point to being.
And problems exist mainly in that psychological time. In the mind.
Mostly, yes. When you drop fully into now, most problems dissolve because their fuel time, worry, regret isn't there.
Because negativity itself is time-bound.
Exactly. Too much future, anxiety, fear. Too much past, guilt, resentment. Presence cuts through that.
So we need to distinguish our life situation from our actual life.
Yes. Your life situation, job, relationships, health exists in time. It's mind stuff. Your life is the aliveness of this present moment. It's always now. That's the narrow gate.
And those overwhelming problems in the now, they're just illusions.
That's the claim. When you shift attention fully to the now, this deep joy, this peace, the joy of being naturally arises. Presence brings stillness.
And you stop needing the future for fulfillment.
Right. You become less attached to outcomes.
Yeah.
Your inner state isn't dependent on whether things go well or badly externally.
Your sense of self comes from being, not your history.
Which stops that endless striving to become someone else. It's liberating.
It sounds like a radical shift, and Tolle even suggests this could be part of a larger human evolution.
He does. A potential leap in consciousness, maybe even necessary for, our collective survival. It requires cooperation, this shift.
Okay, let's talk about ordinary and deep unconsciousness. These sound like the default states for many of us.
Yeah, ordinary unconsciousness is basically being identified with your thoughts, emotions, reactions. The egoic mind running the show, you're not really aware of that deeper being.
It's not acute suffering, just a background noise.
Exactly. A low-level unease, discontent, boredom, nervousness, like static. We get so used to it we barely notice.
And we try to numb it out.
Often, yeah. Alcohol, drugs, food, work, shopping, anything to get temporary relief, which can obviously lead to addiction.
For that vague feeling that something's just off. That's it.
That's likely ordinary unconsciousness, and it can escalate.
Into deep unconsciousness.
Right. When things go wrong, the ego feels threatened, major challenges hit. It's an intensified version.
Intense anger, fear, depression.
Very strong negativity. Often it means the pain body is fully activated and you're completely identified with it. Tolle makes the stark point that physical violence isn't possible without this state.
And it can happen collectively, too.
Yeah, in crowds, even nations, creating these negative energy fields.
There's that observation from the Native American chief in the book.
Oh, yeah, about the tense faces, restless eyes of the white settlers, that constant wanting, unease.
It captures that feeling perfectly.
It does, and Tolle connects this widespread inability to be present, this collective resistance to the peasant, now, to losing touch with being. He argues it underpins our often dehumanized civilization, leading to unhappiness and, frankly, planetary danger.
Which brings us to the antidote, the power of presence. How do we actually cultivate it?
It starts with self-observation, making it a habit. Ask yourself regularly, am I at ease now? What's going on inside me?
Tuning in.
Yeah. Direct attention inward. Notice thoughts, feelings, body tension. Catch that unease early. Recognize it as resistance to the now. Become the watcher.
Just noticing without judging.
Exactly. And a really practical tip, wherever you are, be there totally.
Fully present.
And if the here and now feels truly unbearable, you've got 3 choices. Remove yourself, change the situation, or accept it. Totally. Right now.
And if you accept, do it completely. No inner grumbling.
Right. No excuses, no negativity. Keep that inner space clear.
What about waiting? We all spend time waiting.
The book sees waiting less as a practical necessity and more as a state of mind, rejecting the present for the future.
Creates inner conflict. Wastes the now.
Exactly. Reduces your quality of life. It's okay to work towards goals, improve things, but don't lose the present moment doing it. That's the only moment you actually have.
And there's that distinction between outer purpose and inner purpose.
Crucial. Outer purpose. Achieving goals happens in time. Inner purpose. Deepening your connection to being happens now.
The inner journey only has one step.
The one you're taking right now. Become aware of this step and it reveals everything else. It transforms the journey itself into an expression of presence, connecting you to being.
So the past only controls us if we're not present.
That's the idea. Only the now can free you from the past, access its power.
He also connects this lack of presence to issues in modern art and culture.
Yeah, suggesting that when creators can't quiet their minds, can't connect to that inner source, the resulting work lacks depth, lacks that true beauty. The mind alone can create monstrosities, he says.
Interesting take. Okay, let's explore the unmanifested, the source of all. This goes deeper into reality's nature.
Right. The idea is that everything that exists, everything has this underlying essence, being, God essence, consciousness, even a stone.
So the world we see arises when this consciousness takes form.
Mental forms, physical forms. It's all kind of divine play, Layla, of consciousness expressing itself. The forms are temporary, but the consciousness in them is eternal.
And suffering comes from identifying only with the temporary forms, forgetting the underlying unity.
Exactly, forgetting our shared source.
So when we practice presence, observing our mind, we're connecting to something bigger.
Yes. You withdraw consciousness from the mind forms, strengthening the watcher, pure consciousness beyond form, and weakening the mental patterns.
It's like a personal awakening reflecting a larger cosmic shift.
Tolle suggests it could be. Consciousness awakening from its identification with form. Maybe the end of the world isn't destruction, but the end of this mode of unconsciousness.
And why do we seek escape through sleep or substances? Is it related?
He points out that for many, the only break from the noisy mind is deep sleep, or things that suppress thought sex, alcohol, drugs.
Because the mind can feel unbearable.
Potentially, yeah. He suggests if those escapes weren't available, the insanity of the average mind would be much more obvious. But, crucially, those escapes hinder real consciousness evolution.
We can't go back to a pre-thinking state.
No, the path is through and beyond thought, not retreating from it. Humanity needs to evolve to that next stage.
Okay, let's pivot to transformation through the body. This feels different from many spiritual traditions.
It is. Many traditions have historically viewed the body negatively, right, as something to overcome.
The flesh is weak, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Tola suggests this might stem from an ancient feeling of waking up in an animal body after some kind of spiritual fall, leading to denial, fear of instincts, shame.
So we started seeing ourselves as having a body instead of being it.
A dissociation. And religious ideas often reinforce that you are not your body, leading to asceticism, denying pleasure, punishing the body.
Even Buddha did that initially, right?
He did, extreme practices. But Tolle highlights other, often lost, teachings that saw the body as sacred, as holding the truth.
So the body isn't the obstacle, it's the access point.
Precisely. Even if it's seen as impermanent, an illusion in one sense, it's the only place we can directly access that deeper immortal reality. Truth is found within the body.
So enlightenment isn't about the body vanishing.
Not at all. It's consciousness awakening from the dream of identifying solely with form, both mental and physical. You can be aware of the formless while in form.
And using the mind creatively involves the body.
Yes, connecting thought with the inner body that felt sense of aliveness within. That's where a genuinely creative thought comes from. Thought without thought.
How do you access that?
By focusing attention on the inner energy field, the stillness inside, oscillating between thinking and just feeling that inner aliveness. He says, think with your whole body.
And connecting to the unmanifested through the body brings freedom.
Profound freedom. Freedom from being totally identified with form. The unmanifested is that invisible source stillness, peace, joy, aliveness. Presence makes you transparent to it. You realize it's your essence.
Going deep inside the body can even feel like dissolving back into the source.
He describes it like reaching a singularity where the world dissolves into the unmanifested, which then flows out again as chi, as energy, creating the world. Birth and death point. Consciousness inward finds source, outward creates mind and world.
Wow, so the practice is to keep some attention inward.
Yeah, even while doing things. Feel the inner body, its stillness. Keep that portal open. Experience that background piece. Become a bridge between the unmanifested and the manifested.
Okay, let's list those portals into the unmanifested. The inner body is one. What else?
Cessation of thinking is another key one.
Not forcing it blank, but creating gaps.
Right. Conscious breathing helps. Or intense, non-judgmental focus on something simple, like a flower. Meditation cultivates those gaps. The more present you are, the more naturally thought stops. And the now is crucial for all portals.
What about just space and silence?
Yeah. Becoming aware of empty space around you can lead you to awareness of inner space, no mind. Contemplating space itself is a portal.
And silence, too.
Same idea. Silence doesn't exist like objects do, but it allows existence.
Mm-hmm.
Tuning into outer silence or the inner stillness behind thoughts, another doorway. Even nothing, if you don't try to grasp it, it can be a portal.
And the last one mentioned is conscious death. Sounds
Tolle frames it differently. Dreamless sleep is like an involuntary, temporary portal. Physical death, he suggests, briefly opens a much deeper one.
like near-death experiences describe. Light, peace.
The Tibetan Book of the Dead calls it the luminous splendor of emptiness, your own true self. But it's often missed.
Why?
Resistance, fear, attachment to the world of form. If you haven't tasted the unmanifested in life, you might recoil, lose consciousness, and start another cycle. Presence now is preparation.
Which brings us back to the meaning of surrender. It's not just giving up, is it?
Not at all. True salvation, or freedom, isn't future-based, it's now. Freedom from fear, suffering, lack, compulsive thought, negativity, the weight of past future.
The mind tricks us into thinking we need time to get free.
Yeah, but that now is the only entry point. You don't achieve it, you realize you're already there in your core being, one point of access, now.
And that feeling of lack, of incompleteness, that's the ego again.
Mostly, yeah. Psychologically, it's huge. If your self-worth comes from the mind roles, possessions, beliefs, it always feels vulnerable, incomplete, always seeking externally, never finding lasting fulfillment because the lack is internal.
What about love? How does that fit in?
Love, in this view, is a state of being, deep within you, not dependent on external forms or people.
It comes from stillness, presence.
Yes. When you connect with that inner space, you feel your own formless reality, then you recognize that same life in others. That recognition of oneness is love.
Okay, let's tackle surrender in relationships. Always a tricky area.
Tolle suggests relationships are extra challenging now because humanity is under pressure to evolve consciously.
They're not for happiness, but for consciousness.
Paradoxically, yes. Seeking salvation through a relationship often leads to disillusionment, but seeing it as a path to consciousness aligns you with that deeper evolutionary pull. Clinging to old patterns just brings pain.
So every fight, every difficulty is actually an opportunity.
A disguised opportunity for salvation, for presence. If your partner reacts negatively, instead of your pain body reacting back,
You can use it as a trigger to become present yourself.
exactly, watch your own reaction. Witness the pain body in them and in you without becoming it. Awareness creates space, transmutes the energy.
The book mentions differences between men and women on this path.
It suggests women generally find it easier to feel their bodies, connect to being, maybe get closer to enlightenment because of that embodiment. Ancient cultures often used female figures for the formless.
Like, women embody the unmanifested more naturally.
Potentially. But the core obstacles, mind identification, pain body, are the same for everyone, just maybe with different emphasis.
And there's a warning about identifying with victimhood, especially collective female pain.
Right. Acknowledging historical pain is vital, but making your identity solely about being a victim traps you. You resist healing because your ego is invested in the pain.
Even collective identity based on past oppression.
It can imprison you if it becomes your primary sense of self, blocking access to your true power. Creating separation from men just feeds the ego, distances you from being.
What about attraction and being gay?
Attraction between sexes stems partly from that sense of incompleteness and form. In deeper connection, it's more like surface waves on the ocean of being. Being gay, feeling different from the norm, can sometimes push you towards disidentification, towards higher consciousness.
But identifying as gay can be another trap.
Another ego identity, yeah. Potentially leading back to unconsciousness. The point is, any challenging situation, illness, accident holds a lesson. From a higher view, things aren't good or bad, they just are. Acceptance reveals a higher good.
Okay, let's bring this to surrender in daily life and beyond. How does it work practically?
Remember, the ego is the unobserved mind running things when you're not present. It feels separate, fearful, uses resistance, control, greed, attack.
But surrender changes that.
Allowing the isness of things, stopping the internal fight, reveals that deeper presence, stillness, the uncaused joy of being. You see the cycles of creation, destruction, and form.
And the down cycles, failure, loss, are actually important.
Essential for spiritual growth, often. They push you inward when external success feels empty. Failure hides in success, success in failure. All forms are impermanent.
Even happiness has dukkha, that unsatisfactoriness.
Yeah, because it's usually conditional, temporary, inseparable from its opposite, just separated by the illusion of time. So appreciate pleasant things, but don't seek identity or permanence there.
True joy comes from within.
The uncaused joy of being. It's our natural state of peace.
And living in surrender brings ease.
Grace, ease, lightness, no longer dependent on things being a certain way. Inner dependency on form drops, and often outer conditions actually improve. Things flow. No struggle, no fear of loss.
Learn from nature.
Yes. Plants, animals, how they just are, how they live and die without making it a huge problem. Be real.
And forgiveness, how does that connect?
It's about releasing your inner resistance to what happened, letting the negativity pass through without reacting from the pain body. No one there to get hurt anymore in that sense. You keep your power.
So enlightenment is just accepting what is, every moment.
Fundamentally, yes. Recognizing every moment as the only moment, the best moment. Compassion arises naturally from that space beyond judgment. You see the being in others beyond their form. You see suffering as illusion born of identification. Healing happens through awakening being in others.
Let's touch on impermanence and the cycles of life again, especially regarding death.
The book says the body doesn't die just because we believe in death. Both the vulnerable body and death are part of the ego's illusion, born from forgetting the source.
We can't keep the illusion of a separate self, but discard death?
Exactly. They're two sides of the same coin. We can't escape the body, nor should we want to. It's a misperception, yes, but our true nature is hidden within it. It's the access point.
The world we see is just one interpretation.
An interpretation by the egoic mind of the universe's energy dance. Infinite interpretations are possible, but all are ultimately one. Focus on the causal level enlightenment and let peace be your gift.
Okay, last big section. Acceptance of the now and surrender, especially regarding action. It's not passive.
Definitely not passive resignation.
Yeah.
Surrender is totally compatible with action, change, goals. When you're surrendered, your actions are infused with being. It's not anxious striving, it's joyful expression, deepening presence. Non-resistance actually makes action more effective, more conscious.
Surrendered action. Different from ego-driven work.
Totally. The quality of your consciousness now determines the future. So surrender is primary, action secondary. No truly positive action comes from an unsurrendered state.
Accepting an unpleasant moment frees you from suffering first.
Yes, you rise above it. Then the energy for action comes from being, not resistance. Resistance drains energy. Surrender is saying yes to now aligning internally.
Releasing mental resistance.
Acceptance frees you to act, but positively, peacefully.
And surrender dissolves those unconscious patterns, shifts conditions.
Often, yes, the patterns weaken. External conditions you are resisting tend to change or dissolve, or if they don't change, acceptance lets you rise above them internally. Either way, freedom.
And it transforms relationships.
Profoundly. You stop resisting people as they are. You stop seeing them as means to an end. You accept them, recognize the shared being.
Even in extreme situations, like illness or disaster, surrender is key.
Tolle calls them limit situations. They can force surrender when there's no escape. And that forced surrender can bring grace, release from the past.
Seeing the potential for transformation, even in awful events.
Yes, the alchemical transmutation of pain. The first step is always surrender. Don't turn away from pain. Face it, feel it fully, without the mental story, without the victim identity.
Bring consciousness to the feeling itself.
Intense alertness. Move into the feeling. Bring light to the darkness. He notes that when we act from conditioning, we're spiritually unconscious. They know not what they do. Intelligence without consciousness just increases unhappiness.
Surrender dissolves the patterns, frees us internally or externally.
Exactly. Either way, you are free.
Wow. Okay, that's a really deep dive into the power of now. Let's try and summarize the big takeaways for everyone listening.
Yeah, the absolute power of being aware in this moment. Recognizing you are not your thoughts. Getting free from the mind's dominance.
Understanding that pain body thing, how to watch it, transmute it, and just the huge impact of surrender in everything. Your inner state, relationships, how you deal with life.
Which leads to some reflection, doesn't it, for you listening?
Yeah.
How is your relationship with the present moment, really?
Yeah, how often are you actually here versus lost in past thoughts or future worries? How identified are you with that voice in your head?
And what happens when you resist? What's your go-to pattern? Think about times you did accept. Maybe unexpectedly. Did something shift? Did you feel lighter?
It's worth pondering. And maybe our final thought for today is something to chew on. What if you consciously shifted your main focus? Away from all the external stuff, away from the constant mental chatter, and deliberately turn toward the stillness, the presence within you right now. What might change in how you see reality? What peace, what understanding might open up? What becomes possible if you really, truly embrace the power of now?
Heavy question to end on.
Something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.